Well, good Monday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here. And let's wake up the football gods here on this Monday. Man, it just feels like I'm just never here anymore. Between the crews, between working on the red brick house and everything else, I have got to get that place done because I've got to get back to here on a regular and get my studio down there done so that way we can get up with the Dallas Cowboys. We are a little over a month and a half away from training camp starting. Can you believe that? We are in that hold your breath time of year where training camp, mini camps are done. OTAs are done. The players, this is their summer vacation. And you hope and pray that nobody slices a bagel and slices their hand, or they're walking around the pool and lose their cell phone and bust their elbow open, or they do something stupid like get in a bar fight, because those are all kind of things that happen that last week before the football season starts. Because once training camp starts, NFL players' life is no longer their own. Everything is regimented where basically Tuesday is your day off, and usually you're doing something for the team or for the community and things like that until hopefully February. You don't get a break. So some guys get a little buck wild out there. Is that still a term, buck wild? Okay, I'm old enough to remember when buck wild was a thing, but some of y'all will understand that term, others will not. So this is where speculation is. This is where, everybody's going to come out with their different lists of the top teams and top players and ranking of this offensive line and that defensive line and stuff, because there's really no real news to talk about. This is just the anticipation of the season getting there. But I want to talk about something that is actually amazing to me, because being in Kansas City, it was great. I miss seeing prime time and game time and John and, of course, David Wiley and things, being on the road, talking about football, anticipation, seeing the draft going live and things. I still cannot believe that the Dallas Cowboys, for the first time since 1991, drafted a defensive lineman in the first round. I have been a guy who has always said that everything starts from the line out, be it the offensive line, the defensive line. You must be able to protect the quarterback, or you must be able to go ahead and protect the linebackers and the cornerbacks and things, and be able to stop and control the line of scrimmage. The team that controls the line of scrimmage is going to win the game more times than not. That's just a fact. And it's amazing because something has happened right before our eyes that we just didn't even realize that it was going on. Typically, I heard speak. I guess it was yesterday morning when I got up, because I always like to get one of the talking head shows, although it's been harder and harder for the talking head shows to get something negative about the Cowboys. They've kind of gone away from the Cowboys. Of course, you had the Aaron Rodgers and everything else going there, the love for the Eagles and so on, and Danny Dimes and Saquon's, situation and things with him trying to get a new contract and Danny Dimes getting his money. And is he actually a legitimate NFL quarterback that deserves $40 million a year? Of course, Dak doesn't, but Daniel Jones does. But be that as it may, the Cowboys aren't the hot topic anymore because it's harder to come up with bad things that they've done, because they've done a lot of good things. But in this show, of course, Shady McCoy, the topic was, can Dak Prescott win a Super Bowl? And they went on and said all the things that the Cowboys have done to make the team better and everything else. But of course, Shady McCoy, Mr. Ass, was saying, of course he can't win one because he's the problem. Even though they don't look back to say, like the Tampa Bay game where he threw 4 TD passes and ran for another one, 351 yards, beating finally Tom Brady for the first time. They only go to, the losses. And unfortunately, not everybody wins them. You could talk about Kirk Cousins scored 10 points against the Giants. And, of course, Daniel Jones, getting his lunch handed to him like he always does against the Eagles. Or you could look at Josh Allen, who ended up putting up 10 points against Cincinnati in the playoffs. But it's only Dak Prescott. But typically what they were saying is because Dak Prescott is good enough to win, but not good enough to win the big one, that they're not in a position to draft one of those top tier quarterbacks in the first round because they're ass. But I sit here and I look at all of these quarterbacks in the last few years that are being drafted in the early first rounds that are high draft picks, and I'm not seeing them necessarily winning Super Bowl. But be that as it may, the Cowboys, with the exception of 2020, which was bad, but we were still in contention for actually a playoff spot until the end with Dak Prescott going out. We have completely revamped the defense. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember how 2020 just literally made me want to spit up my Italian sub. I had never seen defensive play that was so bad, pursuit angles and things, technique. It was just like weekend football. We just showed up and, we're just going to play. There was no cohesion. Our safeties looked like they were lead blockers for running backs. That play of Odell Beckham when he was playing for Cleveland, where he literally, where we still had a chance to win the game, literally ran 55 yards on a reverse. Guys are just running in front of him, out of bounds. People are losing him left and right. It was just like Keystone Cops. I know another reference that most of y'all won't know, but it was not good. But the Dallas Cowboys, since that time, have completely revamped this defense. There's so few players that are still on the roster from that defense. And I want to actually go through it just because I was thinking about, it's like, who are our defensive tackles in 2020? Would you believe that in 2020 we still had Sean Lee on the defense? Sean Lee was still on the defense. Of course, we had Jalen Smith. Donovan Wilson was just beginning, his time of really becoming better. We had Diggs, of course, who was a rookie. Jordan Lewis, who right now is injured and don't know what was going to happen with him. We had DeMarcus Lawrence still there and Leighton Vander Esch. But when you started going down deeper into the defense, you had Aldon Smith. Remember we brought him for a season, and he started out like gangbusters and had like 3 sacks in the first game or something. We were like, oh my God, we got gold there, and petered out the rest of the season and ended up basically being out of the NFL within a year. Anthony Brown, who's currently not on the roster. Darian Thompson at strong safety. We had a Woozy, Dorrance Armstrong, not even seeing the field. We had Neville Gallimore, who, again, was a rookie. Neville, who is actually on the bubble right now. We had Randy Gregory. Emerson Griffin came in and had a cup of coffee. Antoine Woods was one of our defensive tackles. I don't know, is Antoine still in the game? We had Tyrone Crawford, who, for years I literally said it was time to let go of Tyrone Crawford, and I was like, don't talk about Crawdaddy. You better not say nothing about Crawdaddy. Crawdaddy does the dirty work. He can play defensive end. He was really not fast enough to be a great defensive end, but he plays tackle too. He was not big enough to really be a defensive tackle. And after he got paid on his contract, he was never really that good. He was not worth $10 million. But be that as it may, you keep going down the line because it's like, okay, who were really the defensive tackles and things? Keep going down the line here. Rondell Carter, JMU. Justin Hamilton, Tristan Hill, and Walter Palmore. I don't even know who that was. Dontari Poe. Oh, my God. Remember when Dontari Poe brought his fat ass here? And that's why we couldn't stop anybody. So you start now looking and being thankful that Neville Gallimore, he's on the bubble. He was one of the better players we had back in 2020. When you see O.C. Ndigazua, who is light for a defensive tackle, but he is quick and has great hands who can shoot the gap. He's not a great run stopper, but he's a guy who can get into the backfield. He's another different piece, another different tool. You got Jonathan Hankins, who basically kept us from being able to be just run completely over. And until he got injured, the Dallas Cowboys defensive run stopping was actually really good. And thank God we re-signed him. You even look at Quentin Bohannon, who is not a big name guy that you hear about, but he is a big body that's in the middle that can help slow down the rush. And now we add a Mozzie Smith. Now, there's no guarantee that anybody is going to be great, but you look at the size and the quickness that he has, and knowing that you have a guy who is a great teacher, a guy who took a Dorrance Armstrong, who was kind of like, who's Dorrance Armstrong, who we all laughed at when Catboy said, in production, he's right there with Randy Gregory. And we were like, oh, geez, we're in trouble. But he had more sacks last year than in any season that Randy Gregory had. When you have a Dan Quinn who is a teacher and educator and a guy who also played nose guard, a very smallish nose guard, so I can appreciate Dan Quinn because I played nose guard. I understand, a lot of y'all are saying, nose guard, what's that? What the hell is a nose guard? Back in my day, the guy who played the one technique was called a nose guard. Not a nose tackle, a nose guard. Okay? And see, this lies the problem with nose guards and nose tackles. And one of the problems with the Dallas Cowboys for years. When you say, I have Tyrone Crawford, who's really a defensive end, but he can play tackle. Yeah, but see, when you're doing something specific, you need the right tool that's made for just that job. Yes, he could play tackle. Could he play tackle great? Was he big enough to hold up, against a double team? And then the Cowboys' philosophy as well, if you're a tackle, you can play nose tackle because it's the same thing. No, it's not. And hence you got little teeny guys that are playing nose tackle and getting blown back there with the safeties. The Cowboys now have emphasized the defensive line. And this is the Dan Quinn influence. And that makes all the difference in the world because I have been literally for years, anybody who's watched me since 2016 knows I have screamed, I have yelled, I have begged, I have pleaded about the one technique guy. As my buddy DMV would say, you control the middle of the field, you control the field. Because you get the biggest bang for the buck. The Cowboys always go with the sexy picks. Let's get a cornerback. Let's get a linebacker. But see, most people, because of the numbers, when you see a nose tackle that ends up having 25, 30 tackles and 3 sacks, it's not a fantasy football guy that's going to get you a lot of points. It's not a guy whose jersey you're going to go out there and get. But see, here's the thing. Their job is not to tackle. Their job is not to get the sacks. Their job is to make sure that the linebackers don't get hit by the guards, that they get the glory. Their job is to make sure the quarterback can't step up. So your defensive ends getting upfield get the quarterback. Their job is to make the quarterback feel uncomfortable and want to hurry up and get rid of the ball, in which case then the cornerbacks back there don't have to hold up for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds like we've seen Aaron Rodgers do. That guy, if he's good, will occupy 2 players, which means somebody else is going to be free. The Cowboys, for whatever reason, since 1991, have not realized that. And now we're in a position where we actually have those guys that are capable of doing that. And when you start getting guys, see, this is one of those things that everything is connected. When you have guys that can hold the line up front, and then you end up having your linebackers that are speedy, like Overshown, last year's linebacker, oh gosh, had his back fused. When you have your Van Der Esch's, if they can have a clear field of view in front of them without having to shed the block of a guard, they're going to scrape, they're going to fill, they're going to stuff the run. And it makes all the difference in the world. And that's where the Cowboys finally have an awakening to that. Now, we still have opportunities out there because Tony Pollard it would like to get a long-term deal. Some numbers that have been put out there are like, $27 to $30 million for him and so on. If you do that, you're going to get some more cap space. We've talked about Dak Prescott. The Cowboys are going to need to do his contract over, knowing the Cowboys, they like to do a lot of these contracts in training camp and things. They're enjoying their month off as well, in which case they'll get some more cap room there. There's Jordan Lewis, who knows what they're going to do with Jordan Lewis. I think they're probably going to wait and see attitude with him because they don't need the money necessarily, and he has been a very good cornerback for him. So the Cowboys are in a position to have some money along with the $20 million that they have right now, and typically when they get contracts done, the first year is very team-friendly. So even getting CD and Diggs' contracts done, which they allegedly are working on, you could actually see the Cowboys gain more cap space. Now, they're going to need it for next year because, of course, they're projected to be over, mainly because of Dak Prescott's contract that they have restructured each year, where people are like, how are you going to pay him $59 million 1 year? That's it for a garbage-ass quarterback. Because you paid him 17 and 19, and then, of course, this year, $24 million. You just kick the money down the road is what you've done, and they'll do that same thing. They still have voidable years that they can do that. Or, better yet, put an extension on there and really make it low. If you don't understand, take a look at Jalen Hurts' contract where he's only getting $6 million a season for this, $6 million for this first season, and the low numbers on there, because basically they kicked all that money down the road. They're screwed if he's not the guy that they think he is, but that's not my problem to deal with. There are free agents out there who it seemed like there was going to be a feeding frenzy. DeAndre Hopkins, he just left New England a few days ago where the sides were going to be talking and there was hope that he'd get signed. You got Dalvin Cook out there who, everybody, the Cowboys should sign him. And, now he's basically saying, I'll wait till after the franchise tag date of July to sign. There's no hurry. There's no hurry because there's no interest out there. The market has dried up. People have spent their money at the beginning of free agency. Teams are already geared up for training camp and have already started making their plans and stuff for the year. Now it's kind of like you're an afterthought. So I'm going to end this morning here before I go to work, listening why teams should not overpay for Dalvin Cook.
Value of running backs in this National Football League?
Well, the reality is you can't overpay any position, and a running back in a second contract, which is typically your most expensive contract, sometimes a third contract's more, but it's rare that you're going to find someone who isn't, and I hate to say this, pretty easily substitutable. There's probably about 5 running backs in the league that are not easy to substitute, but the rest, it's you can look to the draft and the Bijan Robinsons of the world who are on a rookie deal. It's going to be interesting to see what happens 4 years from now when he would have to be looking at a potential renewal. Where will the marketplace be? Because you wouldn't have imagined with Ezekiel Elliott, with coming out and being drafted 4 overall, like that's a wildly high number. But at the end of the day, it's really about price for return on investment. We talk about the cap going up, but let's be honest, it only has gone up about 8%. And that 8%, you're pretty much just paying your quarterback and maybe a pass rusher, So it's not like going up like gangbusters. So the running back salary, and by the way, tight ends are now starting to get paid more because they're catching more passes, and we're throwing the ball on first down a higher percentage of the time, year over year over year. So you really have to pay for performance, and wide receivers and corners and pass rushers and tackles and wide receiver. I'm not anti-running back. I'm just don't overpay your running back.
No, that's what I feel bad because I love running backs, and I think they're extremely valuable. It's just the market that we're in right now. And that
crazy.
said, Dalvin Cook, he's ready to get paid. Who is going to pay him? Who is he the best fit for?
I think what you'll see is a deal that resembles more of what Austin Eckler got, because Eckler's actually enormously valuable, especially because he, knock on wood for him, seems to not get hurt, and the rest of the Chargers have some sort of injury plague that seems to happen on that team every year. But I'm looking at Dalvin Cook's deal and saying, okay, well, he's going to probably get an incentive structure that looks more like Austin Eckler's, which means pay for performance. Are you on the field? Are you doing the things we need? If yes, then get paid more. I don't know where he'll land. It's with Zeke in the marketplace too, and another here, rumors of trades or whatever potentially even still looming. It's an interesting problem. I know it seems he wants to go to Miami given his Instagram situation, but I mean, I would want to too. No state income tax. It's a really nice weather situation, and you get to play your brother, I guess, when he plays the Bills. But the market will dictate that, and I actually think that we could see something like for him, like we could see like wait till training camp, and we see it every year. Someone unfortunately gets hurt, and potentially that could drive where he lands. I don't think I don't think there's a ton of activity to try to land him at this point.
I definitely always said believe what people put on social media.
Always.
So if Miami
work out,
it is.
You have to post that you work out, otherwise it didn't happen.
There you go.
Didn't happen.
Right, exactly.
I mean, come on, like, we know that. I was in the gym, I swear. That said, with Dalvin Cook, is he one of those 5 guys that you would value more than Justin Tucker?
No,
No,
I don't know about that
All
one.
right, so who
Minnesota fans think I hate them already, so I don't hate Minnesota fans, but he's not up there.
All right, who are your running backs on the Justin Tucker level?
I mean, look, Derrick Henry changes the complex of a defense. He makes it so that you can't, because it's yards after. Always look at, if you want like a shortcut as to who's really valuable, look at both kinds. Yards after contact and yards after the catch, and yards after contact after the catch, because running backs have to do both. I actually do think Austin Eckler is in that spot, which is amazing because he's never been to a Pro Bowl, which seems really crazy to me. I would say, look, I don't know about Saquon yet. I don't know if I would put him up there yet. I'm not sure. I do think he's enormously valuable.
She's
going to
go
a way
off.
to find a deal with him, but I want to see.
But not say nothing about Saquon.
Potentially him. He's kind of borderline for me. There's a number, but not Dalvin Cook doesn't fall in that.
So I've heard like 2.
All right, so we're going to leave it right there because it's getting kind of late here this morning. But needless to say, the money that everybody thinks is going to go to these guys just does not seem to be, because DeAndre Hopkins right now is looking for a 1-year deal because he knows that the money is not going to be there. I need a chance to prove myself and then really try and get where I want to go. It's been a crazy offseason this year where, the teams have kind of dialed back a lot of that money. That money is not flowing the way it was. We don't know if it's collusion by the NFL or what, but for whatever reason, these guys aren't getting paid. All right, good people, I got a job I got to go take care of, got to pay the bills. But as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And let me say, tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern, be sure to join us. We'll be doing a regular Monday night live stream here as we sit 80 days, 12 hours, 4 minutes, and 30 seconds away from kickoff. And shout out to everybody who has donated to help get Rashid back on his feet. We're actually over $1,540 raised. He's doing really, really good. The Dallas Cowboys blanket that he's been wearing, using every night, is growing on him. Being down here in the man cave, before it's all said and done and we get him out of here, I'm betting that he's going to be at least a closet Dallas Cowboy fan, if not a full-blown, how about them Cowboys type fan. And it's because of you guys that we converted him. I'll see you guys later.
Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
I'll see you guys later.